Today's focus of our episode here was, are you building a family which is optimized to stick together, or are you building a team that's optimized to win? So culture is not something that you set and forget. It's shaping your practice every single day. It's happening by design or it's happening by default. Now, whether you like it or not, you are creating a culture. There is a culture inside your practice. The question is, are you building one that supports growth, high performance, and a thriving practice? Or is your culture actually holding you back? So here's my challenge for you. I want you to look at the team that you're currently operating. Are you building a team or are you building a family? And which one of these will take you to where you want to go? Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, folks. Hey, welcome to another episode of the Marketing Your Practice podcast, the podcast where I have the pleasure of simplifying the marketing and the mindset so you, the chiropractor, can increase your income, your impact, and your enjoyment in practice too. Today, we're talking about something that is shaping your practice every single day, whether you realize it or not. We're talking about culture. Now, you're either creating culture consciously or it's happening by default. And if you're not intentional about it, you might be building a culture that's actually working against you. Now, when you get this wrong or when you totally ignore it, your environment becomes toxic. Negativity and distrust permeate the environment. Employees feel unsupported, undervalued, or even threatened in some circumstances. This leads to higher than is necessary turnover, low morale, and a lack of collaboration. The practice is going to feel stagnant. Growth, learning, and development often come to a halt, and there's little to no innovation or progress. And finally, there'll be friction. There'll be a constant struggle to achieve alignment and collaboration. Miscommunication, there'll be conflicting priorities, there'll be a lack of shared vision. All of these things will make progress really slow and challenging. Now, on the flip side of this, when you get this right, the environment will feel one that's supported. Employees will feel valued, heard, and empowered. In this environment, your team members are going to be encouraged to take risks, share ideas, and grow both personally and professionally. The sense of community and mutual respect fosters collaboration. It leads to stronger relationships and a more resilient team, a team that can weather the challenges that come along with running and growing a really busy chiropractic practice. The end result is a practice that thrives. Both the team and the organization are continually growing and evolving. There's a palpable sense of energy and excitement as employees are engaged and motivated to be their best. Innovation is something that flourishes. We end up with a practice that has a real sense of harmony about it. There's smooth collaboration, there's communication, shared visions. We have a team where everybody is aligned and working together towards common goals. There's less conflict and there's more progress, That's what you can expect when you get culture right. Hopefully this has whet your appetite to put in the work to create a culture that supports all of this. Now, let me go a bit deeper. I want to kind of define culture. What do I mean by culture? Because culture is often, when we think about it, it's one of those buzzwords, and maybe we think about, this is for big businesses, Fortune 500 companies. It's not for small, feet on the ground companies, service businesses like yours. Couldn't be further from the truth. Culture is going to be one of the strongest indicators for whether you do end up having impact, enjoyment, and income in your practice, and how hard it is as well. So let's get on to that definition. Much like the culture in a petri dish, this is how I actually think about it as well. The staff culture, the culture inside your practice as well, determines what behaviors and what practices grow and thrive within your team and what doesn't, So just as though, again, there are certain conditions in a petri dish, they foster the growth of specific organisms. We put down different cultures depending on what we want to grow. The values, the beliefs, and the practices in your workplace culture and nurture certain attitudes and actions and outcomes whilst inhibiting others as well. So a healthy culture cultivates positive growth, collaboration, and productivity, while a poor culture can stifle progress and builds dysfunction. Now, culture is made up of three independent kind of variables here. Imagine a Venn diagram with culture kind of sitting in the middle of it, No particular order. The first one I want to talk about here is safety and belonging, So in the context of workplace culture, safety refers to an environment where team members feel physically, emotionally, and psychologically secure, It's a space where individuals can express themselves, without fear or judgment, retaliation, or negative consequences. When a team feels safe, they're more likely to take risks, innovate and engage fully in their roles. Innovation is something that we want from our staff members. We want them using initiative and innovating and coming up with ideas so we don't feel like we're the source of all of it. And safety and belonging is essential for that, okay? It's the foundation for open communication, collaboration, and trust. Now, belonging, okay, builds on safety by creating a sense of inclusion and connection. It means that every team member feels valued for who they are and sees their contributions as essential to the group's success, okay? If we don't have safety and belonging as a part of our culture, it's going to cause all those things I talked about before, toxic and stagnant, and all those things are going to come from it. The second part, or the second ingredient to think about here, is purpose and value-driven performance, okay? This is about aligning your team's actions and decisions with a clear sense of purpose and the core values of the practice. So this means we need to have those things. We need to have core values and we need to have purpose. So in a chiropractic practice, this means a shared understanding of why is it the practice exists beyond just revenue. Okay, it's about connecting our work to a larger mission. Maybe it's, just improving patient well-being, not just improving it, patient well-being. But I want you to even go beyond that. What kind of impact does it have on the community? Maybe the town that you're in, the state, the world even. When a team is driven by purpose, every action can be aligned with that mission, okay? Performance will naturally follow as well. Now, value-driven performance means that the decisions and the behaviors are guided by the practice's core values, okay? Integrity, compassion, patient-centered care. These are things that you might choose. Now, when these values are consistently upheld, they become the foundation for high performance and long-term success. Our values act as a North Star, okay? In those grey situations where it's hard to know, do we behave like this or like that? We use our values and our purpose to move us forwards, okay? So the third ingredient, which I want to spend the rest of this episode really focusing on, I call optimized to win. Now, I want to contrast optimized to win against optimized to stick together, okay? Now, optimized to win is focused on building a team, and optimized to stick together is about building a family. Now, I first began to really unpack this concept after reading a quote from Patty McCord. She had an enormous amount to do with Netflix, particularly when Netflix was having some troubles with their culture. Okay, she came in and helped to foster a workplace environment that went from one where people didn't want to be to one of the most admired workplace cultures going. People want to work at Netflix for several different reasons. And here's this quote from Patty. She says this: "There's a big difference between a team and a family. Teams change regularly and are optimized to win at all time, while families strive to stick together no matter what." Okay, let me say that again for you, okay? There's a big difference between a team and a family. Teams change regularly and are optimized to win at all times, while families strive to stick together no matter what. Now, if we think about it, most of the time, there are people in our family that are behaving in ways that we would never put up with in our workplace, okay? We put up with that crazy uncle and maybe the way our brothers and sisters behave. It's because it's family. We're optimized to stick together. We put up with a certain level of behavior that we wouldn't put up with out in the rest of the world. But teams, okay, particularly when we think about professional teams, if there's a player on the team that's not performing, then they get cut from the team, okay? Now, this might sound quite cold, and often when I'm communicating and training this, and I did a big training with this with community influence members last year, and I'm going to put together a whole program to help you and your staff put all of this together, handle all the things that are difficult about building a team. Well, that'll be coming later on in the year. It can feel cold, but if it's built around safety and belonging that I talked about before, if it's built around purpose and value-driven performance, then it can feel very different, okay? Now, my contention is that our teams inside our practice, they should be optimized to win, okay? We're not going to work to get our family needs met, all right? Now, we do tend to have this lovely heart-centered place. Now, it doesn't mean it needs to be cold. I'm going to unpack a lot of that going forwards, and I'm going to ask you some questions. But let's look at some of the pros and cons that come with optimized to stick together. Are you building a family? Because we often refer to, our team members as family, and there are some good reasons why we might want to do that. And as you'll find out too, there are some bad consequences that go along that too. So the benefits of building a family as our team there is they're strong bonds, okay? The team is going to feel like they're part of a close-knit group. It fosters deep personal connections. There can be loyalty, okay, a strong sense of loyalty and a commitment with each other. This can lead to long-term relationships. It means that people can stick around for a long time. A family-like environment can provide amazing emotional support, especially during challenging times, okay? But what are some of the cons of this? Okay, the first one is complacency. This model, a model that's focused on family, can lead to complacency and underperformance. Okay, we tolerate things that we would never tolerate outside of it. Okay, this is the key thing. There's a tolerance of poor behavior and poor results that often comes in a family environment. There's conflict avoidance. Difficult conversations and decisions are often avoided, okay, which can prevent the necessary changes. So, we're not holding people accountability. That's the third one, a lack of accountability there too. Performance standards are inconsistent, and this is going to lead to uneven work quality. And again, the practice is going to really struggle to grow, right? So these are the downsides of it. Now, if we compare and contrast that to Optimised to Win, when we're building a team, what are the pros for that, okay? We're much more likely to see high performance because there's clear expectations, there's job descriptions, there's KPIs to ensure that everybody is working at their best. There's continuous improvement. The focus on winning drives continuous improvement, innovation, and growth within a team. Now remember, it's done all this under the umbrella of purpose and values, making a difference to our community, building and saving the lives of families that we care for, subluxation, nervous system first care. It can provide an incredibly fulfilling work environment. Now, whilst it can be challenging, this environment often leads to a deep sense of fulfillment as employees see the tangible results of their efforts. Now, one of my favorite quotes is, I think about this in business all the time and human nature, if you give somebody a ladder, they'll want to climb it. This means that most healthy individuals want to grow and expand, okay? Most healthy individuals, if we have the right person in their work, are not coming into work to slack off. They want to get the best out of themselves. They want to feel like they're making a difference. And when we optimize to win, we give them the best opportunity to do this. What are the cons of this, okay? There is pressure. In any team, there's pressure, and the drive to win can create a high-pressure environment. Now, again, it needs to be built on the foundations of safety and belonging that I talked about before, okay? Now, this can be stressful for some employees, okay? Not everybody's going to make the cut. And if you're committed to making a difference to your community, to saving lives, then your practice is not for everybody. But for the right person, they're going to love this environment, okay? It can, particularly in the early days, while we're building this culture, lead to more and higher turnover, okay? Underperformance is not tolerated. It's okay. It's not that we're going to be kicking them out the door the way I often think about this. It's they will be choosing not to get on board, okay? There's a train coming along. I'm not going to push you off it, but if you're not going to keep up with what the expectations are there as well, then you're going to be left behind. It can be, depending on the way that it's run and when it's run poorly, there can be perceived coldness. So without proper communication, without the right amount of safety and belonging, without the right amount of culture building underneath it, this approach can be perceived as cold and overly demanding, but it doesn't have to be. Now, I've got a question for you. What are you building, or what have you been building? Have you been building a team or a family? Now, I've dealt with lots of chiropractic practices, and by and far, most of us, myself included in the early days, were very much built in around family. Okay, now this leads to the second question here. Have a look at all of the challenges that you've had with your staff over the recent years. And do they come from the culture built around team, or do they come from a culture that's built around family? Now, when I ask this question here, almost everybody says all of the challenges I have in practice are because I've built it in around family. Okay, there hasn't been clear expectations. There hasn't been accountability. There hasn't been training and resources. There haven't been the support network built around for us to actually win inside of here. So let's go on to question number 3. Where would you like your team to be 6 months from now? Now, if you're driving, then don't do this. But at some stage, shut your eyes and envision, what would an optimal team look like? Make a list of all the things that differentiate this team from your current one. Now ask yourself this question: how did I get there, or how would I get there? Would it be through more collaboration, or is it more solitary work? Okay, it's probably going to be collaboration. Okay, was a new team leader onboarded? What am I hiring for this? Most of us are paying peanuts and we're getting monkeys, okay? For us to get these type of teams that are optimized to win, we need to pay for it. But remember, it's going to enormously help the bottom line, okay? Are there more meetings? Are there more meetings or less meetings, okay? Are you bringing in, external trainers? Are you going away training outside and going along to seminars, okay? Now, if you're wanting to build a team that's optimized to win, then there are really three parts of that. And I want to go through each of these three parts in some real detail here, because if you want to head in this direction, these are the things that you really need to be thinking about. The first is this, is in a team that's optimized to win, there needs to be super clear expectations. One of the biggest reasons why teams struggle isn't because of lack of talent or a lack of motivation. It's because they don't actually know what's expected of them. If you want a team that's optimized to win, you need absolute clarity on the rules, the standards, and what success looks like. Think about it for a moment, okay? If you're playing a game but nobody told you what the rules are, how would you know if you're winning or losing? You wouldn't. And that's exactly what many of our employees feel like when there's a lack of clear expectations in the workplace. They're unsure about what's expected of them, what good performance looks like, or even how their role contributes to the bigger picture. Then what happens is that we get upset or angry or resentful at them because they're not reaching their expectations. The practice isn't growing, but we haven't clearly laid out to them what success looks like. So how do we set clear expectations? First of all, we have to define the rules and standards. What are the non-negotiables for your practice? What behaviors, what processes, and what habits do you expect from your team every day? We arrive on time, okay? We wear this, we're neat, we're tidy. These are the words that we use, okay? This could be things, as I mentioned before, like punctuality, how patients are greeted, how re-exams are handled. We need to make it crystal clear, and we need to assume that people aren't going to just get it, okay? Number two, we need to be specific about success. If your team doesn't know what success looks like, they can't work towards it. Does success mean a certain number of patient visits per week? Is it income generated? Is it a retention goal? Is it a level of engagement in team meetings? Is it what your net promoter score looks like? Whatever it is, define it clearly so there's no confusion, okay? The third is we need to make sure that the expectations are reasonable. So high standards is great, they also need to be achievable. If your expectations are too vague or unrealistic, you're going to create an enormous amount of stress and disengagement instead of motivation. Set the bar high, but keep it fair. The fourth thing we need to do is we need to communicate and reinforce regularly. This is not just a one-time thing. Remember, we did it back in January. We got clear about what our culture is there too. Let's get on with it. Just setting expectations once isn't enough. They need to be discussed and reviewed and reinforced often. Now, a great way to do this is through team meetings, one-on-one check-ins, performance reviews, all of these other things that go along a part of it. Now, when your team knows exactly what's expected of them, they know the expectations are fair and they're reasonable. It builds confidence, accountability, and a results-driven culture, okay? This is a key step moving from that family dynamic to a high-performance team that's optimized to win, okay? The second thing that we need to think about is that we need necessary training and resources. If we're moving towards optimized to win, clear expectations, and next is necessary training and resources. While setting clear expectations is the first step there, okay, expectations alone are not going to create a high-performance team. If you want your team to win, okay, you need the right training and the resources so they can actually meet those expectations. It's like asking a player to score goals, but never giving them time to practice, or even worse, okay, never giving them actually a ball to play with. So if you feel frustrated because your team isn't performing at the level you want, then you need to ask yourself this: have I given them the tools that they need to succeed? Not just a once-off meeting, okay? Do they have the knowledge, first of all? Do they have the skills? And do they have the support required to perform at their best? Am I assuming they should just know how to do something without proper training? So how do we go about providing the right training and resource? Let's break this down, okay? 5 things we need to think about, okay? Have an onboarding that sets them up for success. And for many of you, if you've not done this with new staff, you might have to go right back to the basics with this now, okay? When someone joins your practice, we don't just throw them in and hope for the best, okay? We want a structured onboarding process, whether it's a chiropractor, an associate, a CA, support staff, okay? We want to know that they understand our systems, our philosophy, and the expectations from day one, okay? We want to have ongoing skill development, okay? Your team needs continuous learning opportunities to stay sharp, hands-on training, shadowing sessions, team workshops, external courses, okay? Growth shouldn't stop after the onboarding, okay? Number 3, they need access to the right tools. Frustration builds, okay, when we don't have what we need to do our job well. Okay, this could be software, it might be right scripts, it might be checklists, okay, it could be an office procedures manual as well. Make sure your team has all of these. Every tool should be there to make the job easier, not harder. We want a number 4 here is encourage questions and feedback. Okay, even with great training, people will always need clarification. We want an environment here where asking questions is totally okay. And number 5 is you need to invest in leadership development for you and for key staff members as well. If you want your practice to grow, we need leaders within our team, okay? So our associates, our office manager, we need to be investing in these people and giving them the skills necessary. Now, when people feel equipped with the right knowledge, skills, and tools, they perform way better, they feel more confident, they use much more initiative, or they take much more initiative, and ultimately they contribute to a practice that's optimized to win. Okay. The third and final thing that we need to be thinking about here is accountability. Okay. Now, you can have the clearest expectations, you can provide the best training and the resources, but without accountability, it will all fall apart. Okay. Think of accountability like this. Okay. We've all been at university and we've all asked the lecturer, will this be on the exam? And the moment that the lecturer says, no, this won't be on the exam, we stop listening. Without accountability, our staff stop listening. Accountability is the glue that holds everything together. It ensures that what you say matters, okay? Ensures that standards are upheld and that your team actually follows through. Now, when accountability is lacking, you're going to start to see inconsistency, you'll see frustration, you'll see underperformance. Some team members will end up carrying way more of the load than others, and this will build resentment, okay? And the culture that you've worked so hard to achieve and to build is going to break down. But when you have accountability in your culture, it drives high performance, it builds trust, and it gives a sense of ownership to people amongst your team as well. So how do we build out accountability, okay? Let's go through 6 steps here that'll help us build out accountability. The first is we've got to lead by example. Accountability starts with you. So if you expect your team to follow through and be on time and dress in a certain way and use the scripts and all those sorts of things there, you need to do it too. Okay, I see this all the time and it's embarrassing. It's like there's rules for me and rules for you. I'm the boss, I pay the bills, and that's how it's going to be. That's called a dictatorship, okay? That's not a winning culture. It does not work that way, okay? So it needs to start with you. You need to be all in on this. The second thing you need to do is you need to set measurable goals and track progress. This comes back to right at the start in terms of clear expectations. Okay, if we're not measuring it, we cannot manage it. Okay, whether it's patient retention, communication skills, whether it's kind of front desk efficiency, we need key performance indicators and we need to regularly review them. This means quarterly kind of progress exams. Catch up with your staff. How are you doing? These are things that we're scoring on. Here's where you're doing great. Here's where you're not doing great. And again, remember, all of this is built in safety and belonging. I'm not going to show up as a grumpy old man with this too. I'm going to show up and support people. Inside in terms of culture, what we're going to have is a learning mindset. Okay, which means, hey man, there's either failures or learning. I'm going to expect you to make mistakes. I make them all the time. And let's see if we can kind of reset from this growth mindset as well. Okay, so we're going to need to create a culture of ownership. Accountability is not about micromanaging and punishing mistakes. It's about empowering our team members to take responsibility. When somebody owns their role and understands how their work impacts the bigger picture, they're going to be far more likely to step up. We've got to be giving regular feedback, both positive and constructive. I kind of touched on that a little bit before. So feedback isn't always about correcting mistakes. It's about acknowledging when people are doing great things. Okay, taking them aside, throwing them a high five at the team member, pulling somebody at team meeting, pulling them out. Hey, listen, last week, Dr. Ben did this, and this, did a great job. And then when the checkout was happening, Sue at the front desk did this, and this. This is exactly what we want to see happening. This is what helps us save more lives, okay? Number 5, what we need to be doing is we need to have clear consequences of follow through. Okay, this gets tough, gang, but we're grown-ups and we're running a business and there's a lot at stake. If accountability isn't enforced, it's meaningless. If a team member is repeatedly underperforming or ignoring expectations, this is not the place for them. We're not a charity. This is not a family where people get to behave in any way they want and stick around for as long as they want, okay? We need to address it. We need to have the resources in place. We need to give them an opportunity to succeed. But if not, the train is going to leave the station, okay? It's not that we're going to push them off, it's they won't be able to keep up with it, okay? Now, if we do this, okay, if there's no consequences, we're signaling to the rest of the team that standards don't really matter. And this goes against everything that we've tried to set up, okay? We want to foster peer accountability, okay? You don't have to be the ogre the whole time. Accountability shouldn't just come from you. It should be part of the whole team dynamic as well. So we encourage all team members to support each other and challenge each other in a way that's constructive, not critical, okay? When accountability is shared across the team, the entire team performs at a higher level. So when accountability is built into your practice, people show up differently. They take more initiative, they hold themselves to higher standards, and they feel a deeper sense of purpose in the work. Instead of constantly pushing them to perform, they start to do this themselves. This is what separates a team, okay, or a family from one that's going through the motions to one that's optimized to win. Now, let's land this plane. Let's bring all of this back together. So culture is not something that you set and forget. It's shaping your practice every single day. It's happening by design or it's happening by default. Now, whether you like it or not, you are creating a culture. There is a culture inside your practice. The question is, are you building one that supports growth, high performance, and a thriving practice? Or is your culture actually holding you back, okay? What are the three big ingredients of culture? The first is safety and belonging. It's the foundation of any strong team where people feel valued, supported, and connected. We could do a whole entire deep dive into this. In fact, I've done an hour training on this inside of Community Influencer. Then there's purpose and value-driven performance. This is aligning your team's daily action with a mission bigger than just showing up for work. Again, this is another discussion. I did 2 hours of training of this inside of Community Influencer. But what we dived in today was optimized to win. Okay, today's focus of our episode here was, are you building a family, okay, which is optimized to stick together, or are you building a team that's optimized to win? Okay. So here's my challenge for you. I want you to look at the team that you're currently operating. Are you building a team or are you building a family? And which one of these will take you to where you want to go? Now, I'm not suggesting that you shouldn't have a family there too, but just understand the consequences of that. And if you're not growing at the rate that you want to, if your practice is full of difficulties and challenges, if there's not initiative, if people aren't stepping up there too, then maybe you want to look at that, okay? Building a team that's optimized to win does not have to be cold. In fact, there can be a tremendous amount of camaraderie that comes with this, okay? Are your expectations crystal clear? Have you provided the training and the resources that your team needs to succeed? And most importantly, is there accountability? Does that exist in your practice? Are you holding people to the standards that you've set? And this is, again, accountability is one of the big pieces that misses, okay? Now, if there's gaps in these areas, then now is the time to start making some changes. Because when you get culture right, your practice doesn't just grow, it thrives. Thank you for joining me on this episode. As always, thanks for all you do. Keep saving lives, okay? Keep showing up, keep leading, keep making an impact, and look forward to seeing you back here in the next episode. See you soon. Bye. If you've enjoyed listening to this podcast, you have to come and check out my Community Influencer program. It's my monthly coaching program where we take all this material and I'll work with you to help you apply it, implement it, and systemize it. The Community Influencer Group Coaching Program is designed to help you increase your practice income, impact, and enjoyment. Join me over at anguspyke.com/join. That's anguspyke.com/join. I'd love to see you there.